Hello everyone, Mike Silverman here. Welcome back to another video about my turn-based multiplayer role-playing game where you race to the bottom of the dungeon. In this update, I've added some conditions that can have multiple ticks, or in other words, over time they change or eventually get removed. For example, we have the burning condition, which has been added to the fire spell. So if I target this monster over here, cast fire, we're going to see that they've gained a burning condition and it has 10 stacks. So eventually, after 10 times that they burn, it will be removed. And also in the turn order bar, which is now larger, and you can see everyone's time that they're going to move here, we can see that the burning condition is going to happen here, and then it's going to happen here. So if you wanted to remove it before it would burn, you would be able to plan ahead for that. Then if there was multiple conditions, they would also stack up in this line here. So if this character also casts fire and we cast it on this other person, then we can see now that any conditions that happen at the same time or in other, well, it doesn't really happen at the same time, it happens sequentially, but if they're right next to each other in the turn order, we'll stack them up to save space in the turn order bar. There is another condition that we added, which is blind, but as soon as I cast this, it's going to be their turn. You're going to see them do some things. And before we do that, we want to take note of the new threat system, which is otherwise known as aggro or hate or enmity in other games. And I spent a long time researching how to do this and how different games handle it. Basically, it's a way for the enemy to choose which target it's going to attack. And it's based on various factors, such as how much damage you've dealt to them and how much healing you've done while they were watching you heal. And you can see up here, the total threat for character 3 is 260, and nobody else is on the list. Character 3 is this character, and the reason I chose to give each person a character 1, 2, and 3 designation is because it was the only way to fit a small identifier thing up here that wouldn't be their name, because if it's their name, you can see two people have the name Kirito here, and how would you know which Kirito it is? So that's basically why. And the monsters are called M2, M3, and such. So that's also utilized in the turn order bar, where you can see M1 is this one, so it's the first one all the way to that side. You'll know whose turn it is. I found in some other games it's kind of hard if there was two of the same monster to know who would actually be going next. Right, so I'm going to cast this blind spell. We're going to give them a debuff, and then it's going to be their turn. And based on the current threat levels at that moment, this person's probably going to attack character 2. So we should see them do a move on this person. And this person's probably going to attack character 3, unless I'm able to beat character 3 in the threat by casting blind. We'll see what happens. I kind of forget. Yeah, so they changed target to me, and I don't know if you caught that. We can watch it the next time. But when they change their threat target, it draws an animated red arrow, which is inspired by Final Fantasy XIV's arcing red arrow that shows when a monster has noticed you. So I'll try to pull aggro off of somebody. This is character 2. Only characters 1 and 3 have been noticed by this middle monster here. So if I cast this Ice Bolt, it should deal enough damage to put me at the top of the threat table. So let's see. And there was that red arrow showing, and they also rotate to look towards you now. This character got blinded too, so we can actually see that there's particles, a bunch of particles on them. Around their head, we can see the purplish particles. That's showing that they're blinded. And then coming out of their center, we have the fact that they're also shatterable, which they have like the cold condition on them, and they're burning. So we got the blue and the red particles. And hopefully one day we could do some more interesting effects for that, but that's just kind of like a placeholder to show that they're under a condition. And since I gave everybody every single move in the game in this battle, there's going to be a lot of conditions. You can see it's like going off the screen here. So we're going to have to figure out some sort of aggregating method that doesn't cause this issue. But I think it would be somewhat common that you'll have this going on if we don't fix that. So that'll be something to work on. Before I get into the depths of how the threat works, because it actually is pretty interesting, there's one other thing, which is the healing, like how they choose who to heal and when they choose to heal. So all these cultists we're fighting, they have the healing spell, which we have too, and that would restore hit points to targets. And because I have the level 2 healing, which actually doesn't mention here, but behind the scenes, I've made it so this is level 2 healing. I have the option to cast at an area or a single target. And you can see the targeting indicators changing here when I do that. You can also cast it on the enemy because undead will take damage from healing. Now, the artificial intelligence of these monsters, or their decision making, is based on a behavior tree, which is an interesting way I learned how to make game AIs. And as soon as one of their allies gets to a certain low amount of health, then they're going to choose. Let me see the aggro there. They're going to choose to start healing that person. So let's see if we can get this person low enough, below the threshold at which they would choose to heal them. And they're healing themselves. And their allies are going to heal them up too until they're above that threshold. So now let's just heal ourselves. And before we heal ourselves, this would be a good time to mention one thing about how the threat works. So when you heal, everyone who sees you heal adds you some to their threat table. So it's going to cause, who's this character right now? This is character 2. Character 2 is not on this table yet. They have 0 threat on this table, and they have 67 total threat over here. So we're going to heal, and we're going to see character 2's threat kind of spike across the board. So now character 2 is top of the threat list for all the monsters at the moment. And that's why doing a big heal on all of your party members while you're in the battle might be something you'd have to think about because, well, you would not want to pull too much threat. Also, I see a tiny little thing down here. Oh, the durability icon is hiding. I don't know why that is. Okay, so we healed up ourselves. We're going to heal up ourselves with everybody because I just want to see if they're going to see they pulled threat from everybody. They all, maybe we could do an instant replay here. Okay, and then yeah, that's like just an example. Let's see if it happens again. Yep, we're just pulling everyone's attention here. And I guess they thought that they were all high enough health because they're now switching back to doing offensive moves, just choosing random moves. Now you saw they changed aggro there, even though I didn't do anything, and that is because of the threat decay. So the threat over time is, at the end of each character's turn, is getting reduced by a certain amount. And for that reason, if you're a tank, you're going to have to spend a lot of time and your actions, basically. You want to make sure you keep the threat, because not only are your allies going to be dealing more damage, doing more healing, and that's going to cause the threat to change, but also you're going to be losing threat because of the decay. And if we actually come over here, we can change the threat display mode from simple to, so this is called sparse, so you don't actually even see the number here, you just see the percentages that you are. So if you wanted to clean up the UI a little bit, too much information maybe, you can do that. And then if we go to detailed mode, now we're in detailed mode, you can see there's actually 2 kinds of threat. Let's look over on the left. This is your stable threat in the white, and in the gray is your volatile threat. And we were talking about how the threat is decaying. Well, the volatile threat is the one that decays. So if I go and pass my turn here, we're going to see all the gray numbers go down by 60. Or so I would have believed that they would. Maybe passing the turn doesn't have that implemented. Yeah, okay. So actually, that is only if the action says it should decay threat at the end of it, which most of them do, but I think past turn just didn't have it. Let's try to see. I want to do something that doesn't cause a lot of threat. We will attack this character over here, and we can just watch these numbers. So we should get volatile threat all drop to 0, except, well, that one will be 20 if it works. Oh, because I exploded a thing on them, it added more volatile threat. But over here, see if we can do this again. Theoretically, that should go down to 0. And it did. So that is the decay. You can kind of see that working. And they got to heal up their ally again. Now, the other type of threat is the stable threat. And the stable threat is generated when you deal damage. Well, most moves generate stable threat. This blind would only deal 1. Damage does more stable threat. So you can see there's some stable threat over here. Let us use character 2 to attack this cultist, and we should see that we get a decent amount of stable threat. Actually, we did get it, and then it got removed for a second, and that's why it said 0 for that first attack, but then the second attack we ended up with some. And the reason we actually lost some stable threat is we kind of like gained it and lost it at the same time is because the way you lose stable threat is by taking damage. So once again, the way you lose volatile threat is it decays naturally. The way you lose stable threat is by taking damage. And the amount you lose is based on your like total health and the percent of your total health damage that you are taking. So as the tank is getting hit over and over, they're losing this type of threat, but they can gain it back by attacking more. And also the amount of threat that they're losing is less if they have a high HP pool. So it's good as a tank to have lots of health. Also, if you're reducing the amount of damage that's coming in because you're mitigating that with high armor class, or maybe you're wearing a shield, then the attack will even be a lower percentage of your health. So you will be able to keep threat more effectively by the nature of being a very defensive tank. So that is pretty cool. Otherwise, I think that's like the main things. It's always fun to see the healers taking aggro. We got a little crit there. Got to be wary of your healing crits. You'll pull too much threat. So with all of this implemented, we have the ability for pretty interesting tanking and healing and DPSing dynamic that would hopefully be predictable enough that people could understand what's happening. And we also have conditions. Well, big crit, obviously we took threat. Look at the huge threat we have now. Yeah, so yeah, I just want the tank healer DPS holy trinity, as they call it in role-playing game conventions. And I think it will be a fun time. As far as I know, role-playing games, turn-based role-playing games don't really have the threat mechanics as much. So should be a unique aspect, and that's what I've been working on so far. Next, we're gonna have to implement some ability selection mechanics because we have these abilities and we have no way to earn them while you're playing the game. So we need to have some sort of skill tree, which I want to design off the Diablo 2 style. Also, if you're noticing that I'm getting healed by fire, it's because I gave all these people fire affinity 50%, so they are getting healed by fire. Basically, they have 150% resistance, which means they have 50% absorb the fire damage. I just wanted to make sure that still worked, so I had that turned on. So yeah, we're going to work on the ability trees next. Before I actually implement the tree, though, I've been spending a lot of time designing the character classes because I want to see if I even have enough ideas for different moves for the classes. So, well, I will use what moves I have ideas for to determine which classes I can actually create instead of doing it the other way around where I would say what classes I want to have and then try to think of all the moves that are enough to make each class interesting. Whoa, they did a sick combo on us. But yeah, that's what I'm working on right now. And once I have the ability selection, we'll have to start adding abilities in, and then we'll actually have some playable characters. And using that same system, we can create the monsters. But I think that would be like 2 updates down the line. Once we have all that, we'll be well on our way. I don't know why that person's looking over to the left side, but yeah, there is something about the threat rotation that makes them look in a strange direction sometimes. Well, we won the battle. So I think that'll be a good time to call it. And this has been Mike Silverman working on the video game, and thanks for stopping by, and I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.